Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, has indicated it will not rule out any legal action to halt the implementation of the emission levy. Now, that's if government fails to back the implementation of the levy with scientific proof. Now, the concern is coming at a time government is struggling to implement the levy, which will impose 100 cedis per ton carbon dioxide on industries. Dr. Humphrey Enyimdake is president of the association and has been speaking on PM Express Business Edition.
Seriously, for now, it hasn't taken off because the practicing note from the Ministry of Finance is not yet out. So even though the statement is out there on the factories, because you need to define a scientific way of measuring how the cement factories are doing the emission, how the chemical factories are doing the emission, for which cost you could compute. In the case of the cars, they use the capacity of each car, and therefore if you go, that can easily be computed. So that of the factories have not taken off. The practicing note is not yet out, and therefore there's no cause of alarm. Members of our association and members they're out there, we still engaging government, and we believe that we will engage.
How is this engagement going to go? Because for some other interest groups, they are pushing for some of these taxes to be stalled. How is this engagement going to go when you engage government on this? Because some will say that, listen, you're already burdened. These other tax measures is going to compound your situation.
That's why I use the word. The practicing notes is the blueprint that defines how this said emission will be computed and programmed onto the software to the computer for purposes of
whichever way we'll look at it.
And once it is not ready, as long as they haven't figured it out,
what will be the level of engagement to ensure that this tax maybe doesn't take off?
And it's a science. It's not a matter of it being whether it's taken off. If you cannot justify it by a scientific measure, where your peers of other jurisdiction and of the same category will say your science of measuring your environmental emission within factories is standard, you cannot. If not, we take it to court and test the law. So for now, as long as we don't have the practicing notes, respectfully, Honorable Minister, we engage on all fronts with the best of heart. The practicing note is not out until...
You talked about the scientific nature of this,
of measuring of
this.
Yes.
If that is not established, is a legal route an option for you to come?
Of course, because if it is not the case and you use arbitrariness, all right, and therefore if a cement factory producing presumably 50,000 metric tons a month or a day, and another producing same about 30,000, how do you measure the emission and therefore compute it? It's science. You must justify it.
Dr. Enyimdake there in that interaction with my colleague George Yafi on PM Express Business Edition. But we've got to analyze what impact this would have on the economy. And let's bring in Professor Peter Quartey, who is the director of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research. And he joins us live here on The Marketplace. And sir, thanks so much for joining me on The Marketplace. It appears government is in for a long haul in getting the buy-in of not only labor, but business community as well in getting these tax policies effectively executed.
Yes, certainly. I mean, already the cost of doing business is high, and many firms are struggling to adjust to some of the new taxes and the new additional costs that are being imposed. So any new tax certainly has to be justified, because otherwise it becomes difficult to assimilate such cost in your, or incorporate such cost in your operations. And I think one other point that government hasn't being very clear is what is going to use this money for. Oftentimes you use emission taxes or pollution tax, etc., to change behavior, to affect lives. You want a clean environment, you want to tax people so you can make things better. Now, where are we channeling this money into? Are we going to use it to perhaps even provide charging points for electric vehicles? Are we going to use it to clean the environment? Are we going to use it to halt galamsey? I mean, some of these things have to be made clear. Are we going to use it to even improve the working conditions of AGI and all the business community? So I believe there's a lot more that ought to be done in this. Yes, we all agree government needs to raise revenue because we need to show up our revenue GDP ratio. But let's not continue to overburden the already burdened taxpayer. There are other options by which you can raise revenue. Make the existing tax handles more efficient, We also have non-tax revenue. There are state-owned enterprises that are supposed to provide declared dividends for government. Some are not efficient and they are rather making losses and drawing on the kitty. So these are all things that one has to look into. And of course, government also cutting down its expenditure, looking at some areas where it needs to have value for money.
Ideally, it was expected that at least there should have been an extensive engagement prior to this introduction of these taxes. But since government failed to do that, that's the agitation from labor and businesses as we see now. Do you also get that?
Well, I get it. I think levy, some of these things, you need to engage. Apart from engaging, undertake some background research, assess the acceptance of such tax measures. You can sample some Ghanaians and find out how this will work, sample the key stakeholders, find out how this will work, and then engage some of the key stakeholders as well, AGI and all that. Then you have a sense of how this is going to work and its acceptability. But if you don't, and you just throw in such new taxes, it will receive resistance. You saw levy, we saw VAT, we've seen other forms of taxes that have received a lot of resistance. Even the debt exchange program, you saw what we went through, very painful exercise with a lot of agitations, unrest, picketing. I think we need to move away from this quick fix approach. Rather, let's have some background research, engage key stakeholders in good time. Then we cannot accept. We believe we want to pay taxes. We are citizens and we know our civic responsibilities.
Professor Quartey, what's going to be the impact of this on the economy? Already, we know that a 15% VAT on electricity consumption is projected to rake in about 500 million cedis. So if that's happened, that government, scraps the levies, what is going to be the impact on the economy?
Well, certainly government revenue is going to decline. But I think as government, you also have to be innovative. Look at other areas where you can make up for the shortfall. If you need to cut down some spending, some areas that are not very critical, you do so. If there are some areas that I think you need to seal some holes or leakages, you do so. If there are some new areas where you can raise revenue without burdening the existing taxpayers, you do so. So there are different options available to government. In as much as its tax revenue is going to decline, it could make up for the shortfall easily by looking at other areas.
Very well.
I've always spoken about procurement audit. If we do procurement audit, we will save a lot of money. Look at PIAC. Look at the waste the leakages, the waste that is being reported every now and then. Regular audits, procurement audits will seal a lot of loopholes, and we are likely to save a lot of money without having to tax the existing taxpayers.
Thank you very much, Professor Peter Quartey, Director of